Jaxon Hale reclined in his anti-grav chair, the hum of the auction hall's energy shields providing a faintly hypnotic backdrop. High above, the glimmering glass dome offered a striking view of the swirling cerulean storms of Valtrex. 9. A gas giant whose roiling atmosphere illuminated the celestial exchange. It was a realm where only the galaxy's wealthiest and most cunning traders gathered, eager to outbid one another for relics, artifacts, and all manner of cosmic contraband. In the semicircular arena of seats, Jaxon drew more than a few scornful glances. He was dressed in fine but slightly disheveled attire, his boots propped against the ornate railing. He cared little for decorum. He had earned his fortune through daring raids in uncharted space, clever deals on frontier worlds, and more than a handful of shady endeavors best left unmentioned. Among those watching him with mixed interest was Lyra Castano, daughter of a powerful corporate magnate. She toyed with a sleek datapad in her gloved hands, casting sly looks at Jaxon whenever he made one of his trademark cocky grins. Everyone present understood that Jaxon Hale was no ordinary attendee. He was a man possessed of a strange mix of luck, charm, and bravado, traits that had catapulted him from a streetwise undercity youth to a legitimate player in the galaxy's most exclusive market. At the center of the exchange, suspended in a podium of shimmering light, stood the auctioneer. His voice, smooth yet commanding, reverberated around the dome. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Celestial Exchange, I present to you Lot 312, he announced, words resonating off the polished walls. A most unique artifact recovered from the Andronis expanse. A mechanical hum broke the hush. From beneath the floor, a sealed platform ascended, bearing a sleek, cylindrical object. Its surface reflected the surrounding spotlights, yet it seemed layered with a faint pattern of spirals, as though etched with a living design that shifted when viewed from different angles. Bidders leaned forward, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Lyra Castano raised an eyebrow. Jaxon, typically bored by the usual trove of rumored relics, found his attention lingering on this cylinder. He couldn't say precisely why. It wasn't the craftsmanship alone. Plenty of alien artifacts boasted exotic ornamentation. It was something else, an almost imperceptible sense that the cylinder pulsed with hidden energy. "Starting bid is 100,000 credits, the auctioneer announced, scanning the crowd for the first sign of interest. "Do I hear 150? 175? Several glimmering datapads lit up. Bidding soared swiftly into the millions. Eager collectors, representing corporate titans and private museums, competed for the piece. Whispers floated across the hall like drifting smoke. Speculation grew frantic, and the artifacts' worth skyrocketed. Jaxon had half a mind to let the wealthy elites tear one another to pieces over the object. He was prepared to resume swirling his whiskey, until his personal communicator chimed. Or Ironvale's face appeared as a small hologram. The older man's silver hair lent him a stately air, and his pale eyes flickered with an intensity Jaxon recognized from years past. Orion Vale had once been Jaxon's mentor, teaching him the intricacies of artifact hunting and starship mechanics. They had parted ways under strange circumstances. Orion rarely contacted him these days. "Jaxon," Orion said, voice subdued yet urgent, "acquire that artifact. No matter the cost. I'll reimburse you." Jaxon frowned. He disliked the tone in his old mentor's voice. It was an order, more than a request. Nonetheless, curiosity gnawed at him. If Orion Vale wanted something this badly, it had to be significant. Jaxon took a sip of his whiskey, then casually pressed a button on his own datapad. 12 million credits, he said, speaking just loud enough for the microphone to pick him up. A hush descended on the chamber. Gasps echoed. The number was absurd for an item no one could fully identify, even in the Celestial Exchange. Rival bidders hesitated, uncertain whether to compete. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Nobody made a higher offer. They simply stared, half awestruck, half confused. The auctioneer gulped before slamming the gavel. "Sold, to Jaxon Hale, at 12 million credits." Jaxon reclined once more, ignoring the bewildered stares. Lyra smirked, shaking her head in amusement. He shot her a glance, finishing his drink. At the edge of his vision, the swirling storms of Valtrex. 9 churned with uncanny fervor. Later that evening, Jaxon returned to his penthouse atop, one of Nova Prime's tallest spires. The city glowed beneath him, a sprawling testament to technology and ambition. Twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the metropolis. The penthouse itself was an opulent space dominated by towering glass windows. Here, Jaxon's ill-gotten fortune manifested in comfortable decor, a fully stocked bar, and automated amenities. With a curt nod, Jaxon dismissed the couriers who had delivered the artifact. The cylinder now occupied a place of prominence in the main lounge, perched on a low, circular table of polished black stone. He took a moment to observe it, swirling a glass of Tellurian whiskey in his hand. Beside him, an AI orb hovered, its softly glowing sensor lens tracking his every move. This was Athena, a state-of-the-art personal assistant with advanced scanning and analysis capabilities. She pulsed with a pale blue light as she spoke in a synthesized but gentle female voice. Jaxon, scans indicate an active energy signature within the artifact, Athena reported. How strong? He asked, brow furrowing. Transient, but increasing. I recommend caution, Athena said, whirring softly. Jaxon glanced at the cylinder, noticing its etched patterns shifting ever so subtly. He remembered Orion's directive, wondering what had prompted his old mentor's urgency. He set his glass aside, stepping closer to the artifact. He reached out. The surface felt cool. Then, without warning, the etched lines flickered, brimming with a faint luminescence. A low hum filled the air. Jaxon's heart hammered. Before he could react, the metallic casing seemed to liquefy, swirling like molten quicksilver. He stumbled backward. The substance evaporated into shimmering particles that drifted away, leaving behind a woman. She was slender, with violet-tinged skin that caught the penthouse's soft lights in a fascinating interplay. Long hair, dusky silver, fell around her shoulders. Her eyes, large and luminous, seemed to shift color in a kaleidoscope effect. She hovered for a moment above the table, as though gravity had not yet claimed her. Then her slender form collapsed forward. Startled but responding on instinct, Jaxon rushed to catch her. Her body was surprisingly warm, delicate yet strong. She blinked slowly, her gaze settling on him. When she spoke, her voice was but a soft whisper. "My guardian," she murmured. "You have awakened me." Jaxon stood frozen, heart pounding, arms cradling a being who appeared as much dream as reality. He had expected some inanimate relic. Instead, he found himself holding a living, breathing woman who had emerged from an impossible artifact. For a long moment, the two simply stared at each other, neither fully understanding the gravity of what had just happened. They placed her gently on a plush lounge chair, one of Jaxon's many indulgent furnishings. The woman appeared drained, but her breathing steadied after a few moments. Gradually, color returned to her face. Athena, hovering nearby, cast scanning pulses over her, analyzing unknown biological markers. Jaxon ran a hand through his hair, unsettled. "Athena, what do we have?" "Her physiology is partially human-like, though there are numerous anomalies," the AI answered. "She possesses additional organ structures, and her cellular composition hints at advanced genetic engineering. I'm detecting a low-level energy field emanating from her entire body." He leaned forward, absorbing this information. "Who are you?" he asked quietly, directing the question toward the violet-skinned stranger. She turned her gaze on him again, eyes reflecting swirling shades of silver and lavender. "Seraphina," she said, her voice carrying a regal yet fragile quality. "Of House Xentari." House Xentari. Jaxon had heard rumors of an ancient lineage rumored to be extinct after a catastrophic cosmic event centuries prior. Scholars told tales of a once mighty civilization that harnessed advanced biotech to engineer themselves into near-immortal beings. Yet here was one, in his penthouse, addressing him in a tone that implied familiarity. "House Xentari," Jaxon repeated, stepping closer. "I thought that bloodline vanished ages ago." "Most did," she said, tone tinged with sorrow. "But I, and a few others, were preserved, encased within protective vessels, awaiting a day when our key could once again find a guardian." "Key?" He shot Athena a puzzled look. Seraphina paused, her eyes shimmering. "The key is embedded in my DNA. It is the culmination of my people's greatest technology, capable of reshaping matter, of creating or destroying worlds. if harnessed properly. We believed it should never fall into the wrong hands. Jaxon attempted to process this. He wasn't sure whether to laugh at the grandiose idea or to panic at the implications. If she was telling the truth, this was a power no single individual, no single government, should wield. And evidently, it was lodged within this mysterious woman. Moreover, she called him guardian, as though expecting him to protect her. That idea was almost laughable. He was a rogue trader, not a champion of ancient, galaxy-altering technology. "Why do you keep calling me that?" he asked, voice low. "Your guardian?" She offered a faint, almost apologetic smile. "When you touched the artifact, you formed a bond with me. The Xentari awakened only in the presence of one whose spirit resonates with the key. It is an ancient protocol. You." She paused, as though searching for the right words. "Are chosen." Jaxon frowned. None of this sat well with him. He thought back to Orion Vale's demand that he acquire the artifact at any cost. The man had known, somehow, that something, someone, was inside. The question was, why hadn't Orion told him the truth? He was about to pepper Seraphina with more questions when Athena emitted an urgent beep. "Security breach, Jaxon. Armed visitors approaching your penthouse elevator." He swung around, eyes narrowing. His penthouse was protected by advanced locks, but whomever was coming seemed unperturbed by that fact. On a wall screen, a security feed showed a squad of heavily armed enforcers stepping off the elevator. Leading them, with a determined glare, was Orion Vale. Jaxon's stomach twisted. He should have known. Orion had used him to bid on the artifact, preserving his own secrecy. Now, it looked like Orion intended to claim the living relic for himself. The older man was accompanied by mercenaries in black body armor, their rifles at the ready. Seraphina's expression grew tense. "They want me," she said quietly, alarm in her voice. "My key." Jaxon steeled himself. All those years Orion had spent shaping his path, teaching him about ancient artifacts, forging him into a cunning trader. Was it all leading to this moment, this betrayal? He ground his teeth. He was no saint, but the idea of handing Seraphina over to Orion left a foul taste in his mouth. "Stay behind me," he said, pressing a concealed button on the wall. Alarms flared through the penthouse. Security turrets activated at strategic points. "Athena, lock all doors, engage emergency protocols." Orion's voice echoed from the corridor, amplified. "Jaxon, step aside. You don't know what you've stumbled into." Hand over the Xentari woman. "Sorry, old man." Jaxon called back, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "But I'm not in the habit of selling out a lady who just got out of a weird metal cocoon." He heard Orion's exasperated sigh. "Don't make me force you. There is far more at stake than your personal code of honor." Something in that final remark burned away any lingering doubt. Jaxon had always resented the paternalistic way Orion believed he knew best. And now, the man was about to storm Jaxon's home, guns blazing. "Too late," Jaxon muttered, guiding Seraphina toward a hidden corridor. "We're already forced." The penthouse doors burst open. Smoke grenades rolled in. Jaxon jabbed another control, activating automated defenses. Laser turrets whirred, unleashing bright beams that carved across the intruders. The mercenaries responded with disciplined fire, taking cover behind overturned furniture. Orion, clad in a sleek ballistic vest, barked orders. He seemed determined, unstoppable. Jaxon led Seraphina into a private elevator, keyed for only his biometrics. As it descended to the subterranean hangar, the entire building shook with the echo of violence. Jaxon's heart pounded, but he couldn't help feeling a twisted sense of exhilaration. So be it. He had never asked for an easy life. "Why are you doing this?" Seraphina whispered, trembling slightly. Though she appeared calm, he could sense her fear. He hesitated before replying. "I don't know," he admitted, pressing the controls that would deliver them to the underground labyrinth of Nova Prime's Undercity. "But if Orion wants you so badly, it means I definitely can't let him have you." The elevator halted. A hiss of pressurized air accompanied the doors sliding open. Lights flickered in the dim corridor that led to Jaxon's personal hangar. A sense of urgency propelled them onward. He had to escape before Orion sealed the exits. Or worse. A single thought kept echoing in Jaxon's mind as they fled. Guardian. What did it really mean to be chosen by the legacy of a vanished civilization? Nova Prime's undercity was a labyrinth of neon lights, cramped walkways, and steam vents that spewed pungent fumes. Garbage levitated in half-broken anti-grav bins, stray holographic ads flickered overhead, and crowds of desperate souls shuffled through narrow alleys. It was a world far removed from the gleaming spires above. Down here, old debts, old faces, and old grudges lurked in every shadow. Jaxon guided Seraphina through the chaos. Cloaks drawn, they hurried past street vendors peddling questionable food items. The hush of tension clung to them. Though they had left Orion behind, Jaxon knew the man would not let them escape easily. A half-dozen bounty hunters could be mobilized in the time it took to place a single transmission, and Orion had vast resources. They needed an off-world escape route, fast. It was during this scramble through a maze of steel catwalks and flickering signboards that they encountered an old acquaintance. Scallies the smuggler, a wiry man with a singed beard and a perpetual glint of mischief in his sharp eyes. He was leaning against the side of a battered cargo shuttle, chewing on something that smelled of rancid spice. Jaxon approached cautiously, one hand inching toward his sidearm. "Scallies," he said in greeting, "been a while." "Jaxon Hale," the smuggler replied, not entirely pleased. "You never show that face unless trouble's on your tail." His gaze drifted to Seraphina, obviously intrigued by her unusual features. "And I see you brought interesting company." Seraphina dipped her head slightly, unsure how to navigate human custom. Jaxon attempted to mask his urgency with a roguish grin. "I might need a quick ride off-world. There's a big payday in it for you if you can keep things quiet." Scally snorted. "Quiet, with your reputation? That'll cost double at least." "Deal," Jaxon said without hesitation. Time was more precious than money right now. "Take us to your most inconspicuous hangar." The smuggler exhaled, glancing around as though scanning for watchers. "Fine," he muttered. "Follow me, but keep your heads down. The Undercity's crawling with corporate enforcers tonight." Together, they wended their way deeper into the labyrinth. A heaviness pressed in from above, as if the weight of the entire city threatened to crush those who lived in its shadows. Neon signs buzzed, poorly maintained. At intervals, violent arcs of energy sparked from overhead cables. The deeper they went, the more Seraphina's eyes widened in quiet astonishment. She had never seen such squalor, it seemed, despite having lived in a time lost to history. Jaxon felt the hairs on his neck prickle. Somewhere, he was sure, Orion's men would be searching for them. They had to move quickly. Overhead, a distant roar drew the crowd's attention upward. A squadron of black enameled drones buzzed in formation, scanning the ground with ghostly lights. Corporate security? No doubt. If the higher-ups discovered that Jaxon had fled with a powerful secret in tow, they'd spare no expense to hunt him down. The Xentari key was that valuable. They finally reached a rundown freight elevator. Scallies tapped a control panel. Moments later, the doors grated open, revealing a dimly lit shaft that led to an abandoned docking bay, sealed off from official traffic. "Down here," the smuggler said, stepping inside the elevator. "It's been a while since I used this route, so watch your step. The generator's old and might not hold steady." The doors shut behind them with a clang, and a deep shudder shook the cage as it began to descend. Jaxon held Seraphina's hand, noticing how her violet skin felt velvety against his own. She appeared calm, but her eyes betrayed a swirl of anxiety. "You sure about this, Jaxon?" Scallies asked, pressing a flickering button. "I'd rather not find myself on the bad side of corporate moguls or artifact hunters. Folks have died for less." Jaxon exhaled slowly. "I know the risk, but you'll be well compensated. And hopefully, we'll be off Nova Prime before they catch our trail." The elevator lurched to a halt, revealing a sprawling subterranean chamber with rusted steel walls and a towering ceiling. Scores of small starships, in various states of disrepair, lay scattered across docking platforms. Dim overhead lights bathed the scene in a sickly amber glow. Scallies led them toward a sleek vessel partially concealed by tarps and crates. "There she is," the smuggler said proudly. "The Eclipse Runner. My personal baby." It wasn't the largest ship, but it looked fast. Tapered wings, reinforced thrusters, and minimal extraneous structures. Jaxon had to admit it was a fine piece of machinery, the kind that could break atmosphere at breakneck speed and outrun heavier warships if piloted by a skilled hand. Just as they moved to board, a sudden noise erupted, a harsh burst of static from overhead speakers. The docking bay's rusting loudspeakers crackled with a recorded voice. Jackson's eyes narrowed. It was Orion Vale's voice, echoing through the chamber as though it had been routed into the system. "Attention, Undercity dwellers," the voice announced, calm yet imposing. "An individual named Jaxon Hale is wanted for grand theft, harboring dangerous alien technology, and treason against the Council of Nova Prime. A sizable reward is offered for information leading to his capture." Scallies turned abruptly, fear creeping into his expression. "Treason? Are you insane, Jaxon? Did you cross the council too?" "Long story," Jaxon muttered, clenching his jaw. "Just get us out of here. Once we're off Nova Prime, none of that matters." Bounty hunters and local thugs would be all too eager to earn a reward. They needed to depart immediately. Under the flickering lights, Jaxon and Seraphina dashed up the Eclipse Runner's ramp, with Scallies bringing up the rear. The engines hummed, a sweet mechanical song that promised escape. But as the hatch sealed, a bullet pinged off the ship's hull. Jaxon peered through a viewport, spotting a squad of heavily armed figures converging on the docking bay's entrance. One aimed a plasma rifle at the ship. They were pinned, at least temporarily. Scally swore under his breath. "They're jamming the docking bay doors. I can't open them from here." "Athena," Jaxon hissed, summoning his AI assistant through a wrist communicator. "Remote hack. Override any door controls blocking the bay. Use back channels if you have to." "Affirmative," Athena's voice crackled. "Stand by." A tension-laden minute passed. Outside, rifle fire peppered the Eclipse Runner, scorching the hull. Scallies cursed, checking the console. "Shields at half strength," he muttered. "This is not good." With a grinding shriek, the docking bay roof began to open, metal plates sliding away to reveal a sliver of neon-lit night sky. That was all Scallies needed. He engaged thrusters, and the ship jerked upward, scattering crates and fueling lines. The armed figures fired desperately, but the Eclipse Runner streaked into the air, ascending through the tight channel of the Undercity's roof with hair-raising velocity. They shot out into the open night. Below lay the shimmering skyline of Nova Prime's upper levels. Far above, the blackness of space beckoned. Jaxon breathed, half in relief, half in awe. They were airborne, but nowhere near safe. Military-grade scanners would track the Eclipse Runner the moment it cleared the atmosphere. "Punch it," Jaxon said, pressing a control to feed additional power to the engines. Scallies complied, navigating the labyrinth of towering spires and luminous hollow billboards. They soared between flashing signals, narrowly avoiding collisions with commercial craft that zipped along established flight lanes. Behind them, an ominous rumble echoed. Corporate security interceptors launched in pursuit. Their engines streaked across the night like vengeful comets. Blaster fire lit the sky in brilliant arcs. Scallies pulled evasive maneuvers, weaving unpredictably. Seraphina gripped Jaxon's arm, eyes wide with alarm. "Hang on," Scally shouted as he angled the Eclipse Runner into a daring climb. The engines wailed, the cabin shook, and the city lights dropped away. Within moments, they breached the lower atmospheric layers. Star-studded darkness expanded overhead. But the interceptors did not relent. They fired bursts of plasma. One shot clipped the Eclipse Runner's starboard wing, causing the ship to lurch violently. Alarms blared, consoles flickered. Jaxon's pulse thundered. They couldn't outrun them all in the planet's gravity well. They needed to make it to hyperspace. "Divert emergency power to the FTL core," Jaxon yelled above the din. "Athena, plot a jump to uncharted space. Anywhere that's not crawling with Orion's men." "Calculations in progress," Athena replied, her synthesized voice layering over the shrill warning alarms. "Please hold the vessel steady." The interceptors closed in, their lock-on signals echoing in the cockpit. A half-dozen missiles launched, swirling contrails behind them. Scallies cursed, slamming a fist on the console. Then, at the last second, the Eclipse Runner's sensors detected the threat. Automated countermeasures launched. Chaff and flares erupted, diverting most of the incoming warheads. The ship trembled under the shockwave of near misses. In the cockpit, sparks flew from an overloaded circuit. Smoke coiled beneath the control panels. Yet Scallies maintained a dogged grip on the yoke, coaxing the craft higher. Finally, A beep signaled that the FTL system was ready. "Punch it now," Jaxon ordered. Scallies pressed the jump lever. Space warped outside the cockpit, swirling into a tunnel of stars. The interceptors, still behind them, shrank into the distance as the universe stretched into luminous streaks. In a flash, the Eclipse runner vanished from Nova Prime's orbit, leaving behind only ripples of subspace distortion. They had escaped, at least for the moment. The jump out of Nova Prime was turbulent, and everyone felt the stomach-twisting jolt of entering faster-than-light travel under duress. The craft rattled violently. Lights flickered. For a moment, it seemed they might be torn apart by gravitational stresses. Then, abruptly, the shaking ceased. The viewport offered a disorienting swirl of colors. They drifted in the shimmering tides of hyperspace, safe from the immediate threat of Orion's forces. In the cockpit, Scallies ran diagnostics while Jaxon and Seraphina tried to catch their breaths. Seraphina took in the swirling expanse through the viewport, eyes reflecting the mesmerizing kaleidoscope. "Such beauty," she whispered, voice carrying a note of awe. Jaxon nodded, quietly relieved. He had leaped headfirst into trouble again, but at least they were alive. For now, Athena manifested on a small console screen. Coordinates set for an unexplored sector on the galactic fringe, designated SC-77. Estimated arrival in 2 hours, subject to potential anomalies. Jaxon offered Scallies a weary grin. "You all right, old friend?" Scallies scowled. "I'm not that old, and I'm not your friend, Hale. Especially after you pulled me into this mess. But yeah, I'll live." The ship, on the other hand. "She needs repairs." He tapped a console, grimacing. "Starboard thruster is offline. Sublight engines are at half capacity, and the hull is scorched in places. We'll need to put down somewhere with decent facilities." Jaxon raked a hand through his hair. "Once we're out of hyperspace, we'll head for a safe haven. I've got some contacts on a few fringe stations." He paused, turning to Seraphina, who had taken a seat on a cushioned bench. "So, you said you hold the key, that it can reshape worlds." She stared at her hands, her features tense. "It is not a weapon in the crude sense. Rather, it is a dynamic force woven into my being, a power once harnessed by my people through advanced biotech. With it, we could terraform desolate planets or generate large-scale energy fields. But," she lowered her gaze, "it can also be corrupted for destruction if it falls under cruel or selfish minds." A pang of guilt flitted across Jaxon's chest. He was neither cruel nor saintly, but who was he to be entrusted with such responsibility? Even if she believed the bond between them was fated, he felt wildly out of his depth. Why would Orion want it so badly? He mused out loud. Seraphina pursed her lips. "I suspect he sees an opportunity to seize control, to become a power broker unlike any the galaxy has known. Your mentor, as you call him, likely believes he can manipulate me, use the key to shape the galaxy in his own image." A shadow crossed her face. "That cannot be allowed." Scally snorted. "Well, that's not terrifying at all. Just an ex-mentor with unlimited power on his mind." Jaxon shot Scallies a glare. "Could you keep the sarcasm in check?" He exhaled heavily. "We'll figure out our next steps after we land. Athena, keep scanning for any sign of pursuit. Orion might have ways to track us through hyperspace." "Understood," said the AI. "Running anti-tracking protocols now." That left the uneasy quiet of the cockpit to fill the space between them. Scallies continued adjusting flight parameters, while Seraphina gazed pensively at the swirling streams of hyperspace. Jaxon settled onto a fold-down seat, feeling the weight of the situation. So much had happened in so little time. His mind drifted to old memories, his youth on the streets, the many times Orion's guidance saved him from ruin, the camaraderie they'd once shared. That bond was shattered now, replaced by a chase for unimaginable power. A pang of betrayal filled his chest. Yet he glanced at Seraphina's delicate profile, her luminous eyes still reflecting the cosmic streams, and felt a quiet surge of resolve. He wasn't a hero in the conventional sense, but something about her presence stirred a protective instinct he didn't fully understand. If Orion wanted her for malicious purposes, Jaxon would stand against him, no matter the cost. Hyperspace parted like a veil, revealing the blackness of uncharted space. The Eclipse runner emerged near a small, dim star orbited by a handful of barren rocks. It was a sector rarely visited by official routes, dotted only by scattered outposts used by fringe traders and outlaws. As they drifted through the star's meager light, Jaxon scanned for signs of civilization. Athena displayed a small beep. Sensors detect an inhabited station on the second planet's orbit, the AI reported. Designation, Outpost Calvian. Calvian, Jaxon repeated, trying to recall. He had heard whispers of a station bearing that name, rumored to be a haven for smugglers, pirates, and assorted riffraff. Perfect for lying low and maybe getting the ship patched up. He relayed coordinates to Scallies, who guided the damaged vessel toward the planet. Within minutes, they spotted a drifting cluster of modular habitats clinging to the planet's orbit, connected by pressurized walkways. Faint flickers of neon in the station's signage suggested a place where few questions would be asked for the right price. "Let me do the talking," Jaxon said as they approached. "We'll need a docking berth and a mechanic. And if they ask, we're just merchants who ran afoul of pirates." Scallies chuckled grimly. "Whatever you say." A coarse voice crackled over the comm, instructing them to pay a docking fee and stand by for an airlock. The Eclipse runner settled into a cramped docking clamp. Once the ship's engines powered down, Jaxon felt a slight lessening of tension in his shoulders. For a moment, they were safe. Inside Outpost Calvian's main concourse, the atmosphere proved just as rough as Jaxon had expected. Flickering overhead lights illuminated a wide corridor lined with market stalls selling everything from salvage to illegal pharmaceuticals. The acrid odor of unfiltered air hung thick, the ventilation systems obviously neglected. Everywhere they looked, suspicious eyes appraised them. Seraphina drew particularly sharp stares, her violet skin marking her as something rare and exotic. "Stay close," Jaxon murmured to her. They sought out the local repair docks. A surly mechanic named Rolf examined the Eclipse runner, chewing on a battered stylus as he glared at the damage. "This'll cost you," he grunted. "Parts aren't cheap out here, and my time's even more valuable." "We'll pay," Jaxon said, "and we'll need it done fast." The mechanic shrugged, raising an eyebrow. "I can get you operational in a couple of days. Faster if you've got double the credits." Jaxon cursed under his breath. Fine, double. He couldn't afford to linger, but what choice did he have? While Scally stayed to supervise repairs, Jaxon led Seraphina through a labyrinth of narrow corridors, overhead pipes hissing with steam. They arrived at a seedy lodging module, securing a small private cabin for temporary shelter. The metal walls hummed with the station's life support systems, and a single viewport looked out into the star-dappled void. Inside, Seraphina sank onto a narrow bunk, her posture tense. "All this," she murmured, "it's so different from what I remember. My people, we once shaped entire worlds, forging them into sanctuaries for peace and beauty. But time has marched on, and I find myself in a galaxy I hardly recognize." Jaxon watched her quietly. A pang of empathy stirred inside him. "I'd imagine it's overwhelming," he said. "But you're not alone." She managed a faint smile. "Thank you." He nodded. 1,000 questions swirled in his mind. Had there been other Xentari survivors? What would happen if Seraphina tried to harness the key? And could they remain a step ahead of Orion Vale, whose resources dwarfed their own? For the moment, though, all Jaxon could do was ensure Seraphina's safety and plan their next move. As predicted, the Eclipse runner was stuck in the station's repair bay for 2 days. Each day brought fresh tensions. Jaxon remained alert for any hint that Orion had tracked them. He paid bribes to certain station officials to keep their presence off the records. Still, a nagging fear kept him on edge. On the second night, as neon lights flickered in the grimy corridors, Jaxon was heading back to their cabin with a bag of supplies when a shadow detached from the wall and grabbed his arm. He spun, hand diving for his pistol, but stopped short when he recognized the face. Lyra Castano. She wore a sleek traveling suit of dark material, a hood partially obscuring her platinum hair. Her eyes glowed with that familiar mischief. "Fancy meeting you here, Hale," she purred. "You know, you really kicked a wasp's nest with that stunt on Nova Prime." Jaxon gritted his teeth. He'd had no contact with Lyra since the auction. "What are you doing here? Are you working for Orion now?" Lyra's laugh echoed softly. "Hardly. My father might be in Orion's pocket, but I go where I please. Word on the black market says you acquired a living artifact, some legendary being from the Andronis expanse. Everyone's buzzing about the bounty on your head. He stiffened. I don't suppose you came to collect it? She placed a hand on her hip, rolling her eyes. As if I need the money. No, I'm here to offer you a deal. I overheard certain corporate ties are forging an alliance with Orion Vale. He's preparing to launch a covert fleet to find you. Something about a device that can reshape planets. If you let me come along, I'll help you slip their net. I have resources, Jaxon. Credits, star charts, safe routes. He regarded her warily. They had once shared a flirtatious camaraderie. Yet trusting her outright would be foolish. And what do you get in return? He asked. Lyra smiled, stepping closer. A chance to see what this ancient key can do. Let's just say the corporate sector bores me, and I'm hungry for something bigger. Her gaze sparkled. Is that so wrong, to crave adventure? Jaxon paused. He wouldn't share Seraphina's secrets lightly, but he couldn't deny they needed all the help they could get. All right, he said low. But you so much as breathe a word to Orion, I'll... Oh, relax, Lyra interrupted with a laugh. If I wanted you captured, I'd have sold you out the moment I got here. She gave a theatrical bow. Shall we? Back at the cabin, Seraphina watched Lyra with a trace of curiosity, while Lyra studied Seraphina with equal fascination. Tension bristled in the cramped space, though Jaxon tried to ease it by explaining the arrangement. Lyra's an old associate, he said carefully. She has connections and can help us avoid Orion's traps. Seraphina nodded, though her expression remained guarded. If Jaxon trusts you, she said softly, then I will try to trust you as well. Lyra smirked. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, dear. We're all in a mess together, so let's hope we make it through. Scallies arrived later, wiping grease from his hands. Repairs are almost done. Another hour, maybe less. He glanced at Lyra with a wry smile. Who's the new recruit? They exchanged introductions, and soon plans took shape. They needed to keep moving, to stay beyond Orion's reach. Rumor had it that a series of cosmic storms near the warp lanes would make certain routes impassable for large fleets. If they could sneak through, they might gain precious time. The question remained, where to go next? Suddenly, Athena's calm voice sounded from Jaxon's wrist communicator. Jaxon, I've detected multiple FTL signatures entering this region of space. Their mass suggests they could be warships. Jaxon's blood ran cold. He snapped his gaze to Seraphina, who had gone pale. Orion found us. Emergency klaxons blared throughout Outpost Calvian. Docking authorities scrambled as a small armada of black-hulled vessels dropped out of hyperspace, converging on the station's orbit. Large capital ships, bristling with weaponry, formed a blockade. Smaller frigates and fighter escorts spread out, ensuring no vessel slipped away unnoticed. Inside the Eclipse Runner, Jaxon and the others hastily completed final checks. Rolf the mechanic barked at his crew, rushing to finish. The docking clamps groaned as they released the ship. Over comms, station officials shouted for calm, while mercenaries stationed on the outpost demanded to see cargo manifests. But fear reigned. They're scanning all ships leaving, Scallies said, hands tied on the controls. We need a diversion, or we'll be blasted to dust the moment we exit. Lyra's lips curled into a grin. Lucky for you, I planned ahead. She produced a small device from her pocket, pressing a sequence of buttons. Let's just say I convinced a few disgruntled freelancers on the station to help stir up chaos. No sooner had she spoken than a series of explosions rocked the station's outer modules. Sparks and debris showered the blockade. Alarmed shouts and disorganized orders blared across open comm channels. Several corporate ships broke formation to investigate, giving the Eclipse Runner an opening. Now, Jaxon shouted. Scallies fired the thrusters, propelling the ship out of the docking tube. A hail of laser fire from automated turrets forced them into evasive maneuvers, but the chaos Lyra had triggered bought them time. Weaving through drifting wreckage and panicked freighters, they aimed for the edge of the blockade. A sleek destroyer moved to intercept, cannons lighting up. The Eclipse Runner shuddered under near hits. Jaxon wrenched the controls from Scallies, taking partial manual operation. I'll handle this, he growled. You focus on calibrating the FTL spool. Lyra's device erupted in another wave of sabotage within the station, sending flaming debris hurtling into space. The destroyer was forced to pivot, avoiding collisions. That gave Jaxon his moment. He angled the ship sharply, pushing the newly repaired thrusters to their limit. The hull screeched under strain, but they broke through the blockade's outer rim. Hyperspace jump in 3, 2, 1. Scallies yelled. Space twisted again, swallowing them into the shimmering corridor of faster-than-light travel. For a second time, they escaped Orion's clutches, though only just. The battered Eclipse runner soared through subspace, leaving the battered outpost behind. They emerged near a sector riddled with cosmic storms, swirling eddies of ionized particles and gravitational distortions that made conventional navigation perilous. Titans of swirling gas glowed in the darkness, flinging arcs of lightning across the void. This was no place for the faint of heart, but the storms might offer a hiding place from Orion's relentless pursuit. "We'll lose them in there," Jaxon said, pointing to the sensor display. "No large fleet can safely follow. We can slip deeper into uncharted territory." Scallies was less enthusiastic, eyeing the shifting storm fronts. "One wrong move, and we could be vaporized. But I guess we have no choice." Lyra's gaze gleamed as she leaned over the console. "This is the adventure I've been craving." Seraphina stood near a viewport, face impassive, eyes reflecting the lightning-streaked cosmos. Jaxon approached her, resting a tentative hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" She exhaled softly. "Yes, but I sense the key stirring in me, Jaxon. The vortex of energies out there resonates with what's inside me. My people called such storms the veils of creation, the raw materials of cosmic birth and destruction." She hesitated, tears glistening in her luminous eyes. "There is so much I cannot remember. And yet, I feel it in my blood." His heart clenched. No matter the dangers, they had to keep moving. If Orion seized her, an unimaginable power would be at his command. Jaxon refused to let that happen. With renewed determination, he guided Seraphina to a seat, fastening her harness for safety. Then he joined Scallies and Lyra up front, bracing for the treacherous passage. "Let's do this," he said, voice firm. The Eclipse runner threaded carefully between roiling clouds of charged particles. Flashes of cosmic lightning burst in the distance, each strike capable of knocking out unshielded systems. Hull integrity wavered as stress levels climbed. Yet Scallies navigated with expert skill, using short bursts of sublight thrust to slip around the worst turbulence. Lyra input advanced calculations into the NAV computer gleaned from her private star charts. Her father's corporate empire had mapped many hazards, though they kept such data proprietary. Now, she put that knowledge to rebellious use. Every so often, a wave of brilliant energy pulsed through the storms, surging across the Eclipse runner's shields. The ship trembled. Tense minutes stretched like hours. Jaxon eyed the sensors, half expecting Orion's ships to come blazing in. But so far, they were alone in this maelstrom. Seraphina broke the silence, her voice distant. "I recall my ancestors crossing such storms to hide from the purge. We harnessed the energies to power our stasis pods, to remain safe while we slept. So many centuries lost." Jaxon's throat tightened. He wanted to comfort her, but found no words. The bleak violence of the cosmic storms seemed to mirror the turbulence in their own lives. Without warning, an alarm pinged. Scally scowled. Unidentified object on intercept course. Jaxon whipped around to see a bright signature moving rapidly through the storms, weaving as though guided by an expert pilot. "Another ship?" he asked, uncertain. How could anything else navigate this chaos? Scallies grunted. "No idea, but they're heading straight for us." Lyra tapped the sensors. "No transponder code. Could be a smuggler," or her voice trailed off, tension thick in the cabin. Jaxon braced. They were not prepared for another fight, especially with the ship battered from previous encounters. He angled the shield generators to frontal coverage, preparing for conflict. The unknown vessel grew larger on the screen, a dark silhouette against flashes of cosmic light. Then, in a bold move, it unleashed a short-range EMP burst. The Eclipse runner's systems flickered, consoles dimming. Sparks flew, and the engine sputtered. "Damn it," Jaxon cursed. He fought to keep the ship steady. The starboard thruster flamed out, leaving them drifting sideways. The unknown craft surged closer. Jaxon glimpsed unusual markings on its hull, a swirling sigil reminiscent of the patterns that had once graced Seraphina's artifact. His heart pounded. Was this an ancient Xentari vessel, or some group that possessed similar knowledge. Scallies hammered at the controls, but power remained unstable. Through the viewport, Jaxon saw the other ship's bay doors open. A directed tractor beam latched onto the Eclipse runner, dragging it toward the vessel's interior hangar. They were caught. Metal groaned as the Eclipse runner was pulled into a dark hangar lit by flickering overhead lamps. The unknown ship's interior sealed behind them, pressurizing with a hiss. Jaxon, Seraphina, Lyra, and Scallies exchanged apprehensive looks. With no power to the thrusters, they couldn't resist. "We fight if we must," Lyra said, drawing a concealed pistol. Scallies checked his own sidearm. "I'm not going down without a brawl." Jaxon glanced at Seraphina, who nodded in silent resolve. Then the Eclipse runner's hatch rattled. A flash of sparks indicated someone was forcibly cutting through. When the hatch burst open, a robed figure stepped inside, flanked by heavily armed guards in sleek armor. Their attire echoed an ancient style, reminiscent of Seraphina's aesthetic, yet adapted with modern elements. The robed individual's face was partially obscured by a metallic mask etched with swirling motifs. Seraphina inhaled sharply. "Xentari," she whispered, "or some remnant thereof." The robed figure lifted a hand, indicating the guards should hold their fire. He, or she, spoke in a resonant tone. "In the name of House Xentari, we welcome the bearer of the key." The speaker turned to Seraphina, making a respectful bow. "We believed none of our lineage remained until we detected your signal within the storms." Seraphina stepped forward, her posture regal. "I am Seraphina of House Xentari. My stasis vessel was awakened. Who are you?" The figure pulled the mask aside, revealing an older face etched with lines of sorrow. Violet skin and gleaming silver hair marked him as another survivor. "I am Alisar," he said softly, voice trembling. "Once a guardian to the Xentari Council, now leader of a fragmented clan. We have wandered these storms, hiding from those who sought our extinction." Jaxon and the others exchanged stunned glances. This was a hidden colony of Seraphina's own people, apparently. It changed the entire landscape of their quest. If more Xentari existed, then the burden didn't fall solely on Seraphina's shoulders. Yet why had they seized the Eclipse runner so forcefully? Alisar gestured for them to disembark. Guards escorted them into a large, domed chamber. The interior boasted advanced biotech integrated with archaic designs, giving the place an eerie, timeless feel. Bioluminescent vines crawled across the walls, while alien runes glowed with internal light. The group found themselves in a sort of audience chamber, where more robed figures waited. A hush fell as Seraphina entered, her distinctive aura seemingly recognized by them all. "It is true," said Alisar, wonder in his voice. "She carries the key. We felt its presence. The heart of the Xentari legacy beats within her." Seraphina lifted her chin, though Jaxon could see she was overwhelmed by the reception. "If you are truly Xentari, then why have you remained hidden? Our people's knowledge could have aided the galaxy." A look of bitterness crossed Alisar's face. "We were once proud protectors, but we were betrayed by those who coveted our power. The purge decimated us. A scattered few have survived among the storms, too fearful to emerge. The galaxy has changed, and old enemies still hunger for our gifts." Jaxon stepped forward, uneasy. "One of those enemies is out there right now, Orion Vale. He's searching for Seraphina, hoping to claim her abilities for his own ends. He might come here too." A murmur ran through the Xentari gathered, their features tightening. Alisar turned to Jaxon, eyes glowing with guarded curiosity. "And you are her guardian?" Jaxon grimaced. "She seems to think so, though I'm just a rogue trader who stumbled into all this." A small smile touched Alisar's lips, but worry lingered in his gaze. "You underestimate the bond. A guardian's will shapes the key's potential. A pure heart can guide it to create. A corrupted one, to destroy." The conversation halted as a younger Xentari woman approached, scanning Seraphina with a handheld device that glowed. She nodded to Alisar. "Her key is stable, but recently awakened. She will need guidance if she hopes to control it." Seraphina's posture sagged slightly, relief and apprehension mixing on her face. "Then you can teach me?" Alisar stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Seraphina's shoulder. "Yes, child. That is our purpose. Yet time is short. Your awakening has likely drawn not only Orion, but others who thirst for the power we guard. In unspoken agreement, they led Seraphina deeper into the ship, to a place reminiscent of a grand library or temple. Iridescent crystals pulsed in alcoves, each containing fragments of knowledge from the lost Xentari civilization. The rest of the group followed, watched carefully by armed guards. For days, the Eclipse Runner remained docked inside the massive ship, hidden amidst swirling storms. Alisar and the other elders introduced Seraphina to ancient rites designed to focus the key. They guided her in meditation, enchanting harmonic tones that resonated with luminous crystals, and channeling subtle energies that glowed softly beneath her skin. At times, Jaxon joined these sessions, standing at the edge of the temple hall, unsure of his place. Alisar insisted he be there, for the Guardian's presence helped stabilize Seraphina's nascent abilities. The others, Lyra and Scallies, watched from a respectful distance, fascinated by the otherworldly rituals. Occasionally, the robed Xentari would chant in a language older than memory, and Seraphina's eyes would shine with a brilliant white light. In those moments, Jaxon sensed a palpable force in the air, charged like the aftermath of lightning. The hair on his arms would stand on end. Between sessions, Alisar conversed with Jaxon, gleaning the story of their flight from Nova Prime and Orion's relentless pursuit. The elder's face grew grim with each detail. "This Orion Veil," Alisar said, frowning. "He must be stopped. The key's potential, in the hands of a man driven by ambition, could ravage entire star systems. We cannot hide forever." Jaxon nodded. "He taught me everything I know, which makes me worry he'll anticipate our moves. He's cunning, manipulative." "What do you propose?" asked the elder. A steely resolve took root in Jaxon's voice. "We stand our ground, find a way to neutralize him once and for all. If we keep running, he'll never stop chasing us." Alisar sighed. "Conflict is not the Xentari way, but it may be necessary to ensure the key remains safe. If Seraphina completes her training, she might harness enough control to defend us all." But the question remained, how long before Orion discovered their hiding place? As if summoned by that dread thought, the day arrived when the Xentari sensors lit up with alarms. Orion Veil's fleet had entered the storms. Subspace pings indicated advanced scanning arrays that cut through interference. It was only a matter of time before they locked onto the Xentari vessel. In the temple hall, the elders gathered. Seraphina stood in their midst, her violet hair drifting in an unseen breeze. Power crackled around her, and subtle waves of light pulsed beneath her skin. She had progressed quickly in her training, but would it be enough? Outside, in the swirling cosmic clouds, Orion's warships loomed. Fighters darted ahead, scouring every nook of the storm. The main cruiser, black as obsidian, advanced methodically. Alisar placed both hands on Seraphina's shoulders. "You mustn't let fear govern you, child. Trust the key, trust your guardian." She nodded, eyes fluttering. Then she turned to Jaxon, who stood nearby. "Will you stand with me?" He approached, resting a gentle hand against her cheek, ignoring the stares of the assembled Xentari. "Always," he said softly. A faint smile curved her lips. Together, flanked by Lyra and Scallies, they made their way to the command deck, where monitors displayed the encroaching enemy. Alisar and the other Xentari readied the ship's defenses, though they lacked the heavy firepower needed to match Orion's fleet. Seraphina was the deciding factor. Lightning streaked the void as Orion's fleet closed in. The Xentari vessel, massive yet not designed for all-out war, hovered amidst the storms. Jaxon felt the tension coil in his chest. Any moment now, Orion would make demands. Sure enough, a harsh comm signal crackled to life. Orion Veil's voice resounded across the deck speakers. "Xentari vessel, this is Orion Veil. Surrender Seraphina and the key. No harm will come to you if you comply." Alisar stood by the console, jaw tight. "Will you respond?" he asked Jaxon. Jaxon nodded, stepping forward. "Patch me through." He took a breath, projecting confidence. "Orion, this is Jaxon Hale. You're not getting Seraphina." A cold laugh answered. "You always did have a rebellious streak, Jaxon, but now you stand in the way of progress. The key's power can reshape the galaxy, free it from petty conflicts, if wielded by someone with vision. Surrender now, or be destroyed." Jaxon's fists clenched. "I've seen what your vision looks like. Oppression, exploitation, endless subjugation. Never again. Silence. Then Orion spoke, quieter. You disappoint me, Jaxon. But so be it. Weapons fire lanced out from Orion's cruiser, slamming into the Xentari ship's shields. The vessel lurched, alarms ringing. Alisar and the crew scrambled to maintain integrity. Jaxon swore under his breath. They had no choice but to fight back. Return fire. Alisar ordered. Energy beams fired from the Xentari craft, forging ephemeral arcs of brilliance in the storm. A few interceptors exploded in bursts of flame, but Orion's main cruiser remained untouched, protected by robust shielding. Seraphina closed her eyes, focusing. The very air around her crackled. She was drawing on the key, though Jaxon sensed her struggle. I can't channel it, she panted. Not while I'm consumed by fear. He placed a hand on her back, leaning close. Seraphina, look at me. You're stronger than your fear. You were chosen for this. We'll face it together. Her gaze lifted, meeting his. Something inside her steadied. She exhaled, letting the swirling energies flow. Her body began to glow with a soft, pulsing light. A hush fell on the bridge. Alisar and the others watched in awe. Outside, Orion's cruiser surged closer, unleashing another barrage. The Xentari ship's shields flickered dangerously. Explosions rattled the deck. Panels sparked. Everyone braced, threatened by the unstoppable might of a technologically superior foe. Then Seraphina raised her arms. A shimmering field spread across the vessel's hull, knitting damaged sections together. Where the shield flickered, her light fortified it. Jaxon felt a wave of warmth flood the corridor, as though a benevolent power coursed through every circuit, every bolt. The Xentari ship began to move, guided by Seraphina's energy, weaving more gracefully through the storms. Orion's warships tried to flank them, but cosmic lightning hammered the intruders as if responding to Seraphina's call. Jaxon realized she wasn't just defending the ship. She was subtly shaping the storm's raw energy, bending it to her will. In the swirling chaos outside, arcs of violet lightning danced around Orion's vessels, overloading shields, short-circuiting systems. Yet still, Orion's flagship pressed on, unleashing heavier ordnance. A massive energy cannon charged, beams coalescing into a single destructive bolt. If it struck, the Xentari ship would be torn apart. Seraphina stumbled. Blood trickled from her nose. She was pushing beyond her limits. Jaxon caught her, voice urgent. Seraphina, don't do this alone. She gasped, eyes fluttering. I need the Guardian's strength. Your heart, your spirit. Unsure how to provide it, Jaxon simply pulled her into his arms, letting all his protective instincts, his determination to save her, flow. He imagined a shield of his own making, forging his will into a barrier around Seraphina. Miraculously, he felt a surge of energy connect them, a bond that thrummed in his veins. She stood straighter, eyes blazing. The unstoppable cannon fired from Orion's cruiser, a colossal lance of white-hot energy. Seraphina channeled the key with renewed force. A shimmering wave of light formed in the void between them. The destructive beam struck it, crackling, splintering, then dissipating into harmless motes. On Orion's bridge, confusion and rage must have reigned. The man's victory was within his grasp, until Seraphina turned the tide. Now, the storms themselves lashed out in deadly arcs, drawn to Orion's warships like magnetized fury. The vessel spun, systems failing one by one. At last, the flagship's engines overloaded. A chain of explosions tore through its hull. Twisted metal and streaming flames cascaded into the swirling maelstrom. In a final, desperate gambit, Orion deployed escape pods. One soared away from the wreckage, vanishing into the storms. Jaxon felt no triumph, only relief. Orion was beaten, at least for now. Seraphina lowered her arms. The cosmic fury ebbed. The Xentari ship stabilized, drifting in battered silence. They had survived. In the aftermath, the Xentari ship glided beyond the storms into calmer space. Repairs began. The mood was a mix of celebration and mourning, for they had been forced to reveal themselves and fight, something the Xentari had long sought to avoid. Yet Seraphina's display of power hinted at a new dawn. If used wisely, the key could protect, heal, and unite. Alisar, standing amid the command deck's flickering lights, clasped Seraphina's hand. My dear child, you have restored our people's hope. She smiled, eyes still reflecting cosmic radiance. Not alone. I had help. Her gaze found Jaxon, and warmth spread between them. Lyra leaned against the console, a playful smirk on her lips. Well, that was more excitement than I bargained for. Are we all going to fly off into the sunset now? Scallies coughed. Speaking of flying, the Eclipse Runner is about the only thing that's not a total wreck. Guess that means we're still free to roam. Jaxon exhaled. We've got decisions to make. Orion might have escaped in one of those pods, so he's still out there. We could try to chase him down. But maybe it's wiser to focus on rebuilding, ensuring Seraphina and the Xentari are safe. Alisar inclined his head. We shall journey away from here to find a new sanctuary, one where we can begin anew, perhaps share our gifts with those who prove worthy. He turned to Seraphina. Will you lead us? You have shown rare courage. Seraphina hesitated, gazing at Jaxon. Her voice was steady. I will, but not alone. Jaxon is my guardian. Together, we will ensure the key remains a force for creation, never destruction. The sincerity of her words struck Jaxon in the heart. He was a rogue trader, a man who lived on the fringes of the law, but now he stood at the threshold of something far greater, the revival of an ancient civilization, the safeguarding of a power that could reshape worlds. It both awed and humbled him. He took Seraphina's hands in his own. I'm with you, he said softly, wherever this path leads. They shared a moment of quiet, unspoken understanding. Then Lyra cleared her throat, feigning impatience. So what now? Jaxon chuckled. We'll take the Xentari to a safe region, away from prying eyes. Then who knows? Maybe we'll find a corner of the galaxy that needs a bit of healing. Scallies gave a wry grin. Count me in for now. I've never been part of saving a civilization before. Could be interesting. Alisar smiled. Then we set our course for hope. Weeks passed in a blur of activity. The battered Xentari vessel, with the Eclipse Runner serving as a scout, traversed lonely warp lanes to a distant star system untouched by corporate expansions or hostile empires. There, in the orbit of a lush planet teeming with potential, they began the first steps toward a new settlement. The planet, named Aurorus, boasted wide oceans, rolling plains, and gentle sunrises beneath a golden sky. With Seraphina's key, the Xentari could subtly guide the ecosystem, fostering balanced growth and harmony. Over time, they aimed to cultivate a haven that might one day be shared with other nomads of the galaxy, those seeking a better life. Lyra helped manage trade arrangements, using her father's corporate connections to discreetly funnel resources to the new colony. Scallies ran supply runs, bringing in essential goods. Alisar and the elders oversaw the delicate process of seeding Xentari biotech. The fruit of their labor would take time, but the first blossoms of a new civilization began to sprout. Amid these endeavors, Jaxon and Seraphina grew closer. Their bond transcended the mystical label of guardian and key, becoming a genuine partnership. She taught him the rudiments of Xentari philosophy: unity of spirit, harmony with nature, synergy between mind and matter. In turn, he showed her the everyday joys of life in the modern galaxy: friendly banter over a shared meal, the thrill of stargazing from a simple vantage point, the camaraderie born of working alongside allies. Occasionally, Jaxon wondered about Orion Vale, if he still wandered the stars, plotting revenge or searching for another path to power. But each time worry threatened, he found reassurance in Seraphina's radiant presence. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged stronger. If Orion returned, they would be ready. One evening, standing on a newly erected balcony of a half-finished dwelling, Jaxon looked across the rolling fields of Aurorus. Exotic flowers glowed under the soft starlight, their petals open to catch shimmering dew. Seraphina joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. She had traded her formal robe for simpler attire, reflecting the gentle spirit of the new colony. It's beautiful, she murmured, gesturing to the land. I never thought I'd see our gifts used like this again. He slipped an arm around her waist. You made it happen, he said. You and your people, and maybe a stubborn rogue trader or two. She laughed, warm and musical. For a moment, they simply listened to the gentle breeze rustling through alien trees. Far above, stars stretched in endless expanse, a reminder that countless worlds lay beyond. Seraphina turned to face him, those luminous eyes filled with quiet joy. Thank you, Jaxon. You risked everything to protect me when you could have walked away. You proved worthy of being the guardian. He shrugged in mock nonchalance, though emotion burned in his chest. You're not so bad yourself. Her lips curved into a smile. She leaned in, and under the wide-open sky of Auroras, they kissed, a tender promise that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. In that moment, all the turmoil and danger seemed distant, as if the storms that once threatened to tear them apart now served only to keep them bound in a destiny that neither had chosen, but both had embraced. The Xentari had a future. Seraphina had found both her heritage and her guardian, and Jaxon Hale, rogue trader, once adrift, had discovered a purpose as vast and shining as the stars. And so their journey continued, hand in hand, forging hope from the ruins of the past, protecting a legacy capable of reshaping worlds, and sharing a bond that no storm could ever break.